I would like to tell a story about a saying of Monja Maria. Heaven exists, hell exists, and Nirvana exists. At the time I was in retreat with my teacher in Busan. We used to go in the mornings to offer some food and listen to his Dhamma. And at that time, usually people would come, and sometimes strange people. So one morning a lady came in after food was offered, and she cried and screamed and on the floor and oh, forgive me, I thank you so much, you helped me so much, you helped me so much. And we already thought, wow, again such a case of a person, we have to pick it and drop it out, because sometimes crazy people would come and stuff. So, but the teacher, he said, no, wait a moment, she's okay, no problem, she has something, that let her talk. So he let her talk, and she said, yes, and it was this and that, and I didn't understand everything with that, but I knew that it was a real story that she told. And after the talk was finished, everything finished, two nuns, they translate for me the whole story, and it was like that. This lady had an accident, and she fell and knocked her head, and then she was unconscious for a long time, and she came to hospital, and then she was like clinically like dead or something like that, but not really or whatever. And then she said that she was like fainting, and then suddenly she found herself back in consciousness, but she was in a weird place. It was like she heard people screaming, it was hot, she heard fire, and it was like a cave and grey and weird people, and she sit there and nobody saw her in a corner, and she sit there and she said, oh, where am I now? What is this? This looks like hell. How can I come out here? And she didn't dare to make noise because she didn't want to be seen. Nobody saw her yet at that spot. So she sit there in fear and pray, what can I do? And then suddenly she saw in front of her a turtle passing by. And then she looked at that turtle, and the turtle point her, look to that side. So she turned her head and looked to that side, and then she saw my teacher in meditation posture, in the air, sitting there in the air. And she looked at him and she recognized him, and he shouted at her, go back! At that moment she shocked, and she came back, and then she was back in her body. So after she came out from that hospital, she came straight to the temple to report about this story, and she was knowing that she would have been in hell if she would have died at that time. And the comical thing was that this lady, she knew herself, and she said, I had no good precepts, I had no good lifestyle. But she did two things, and she found that out. There was once a turtle on her back, and she put the turtle back on her feet and was happy to let her run. And this was the turtle that showed her, look in that way. And the other thing was, her home was in front of the temple of my teacher. She never had faith to come in there to do anything, but on her birthday, she did like tradition does, she offered food to the teacher one time. And this was enough to produce the good karma for her to receive this and that situation. And it is not something it was in the books, and my teacher also said it's her story, so let her tell. We first thought she's mad, but she was not. So heaven exists, and hell exists, and Nirvana exists too.